Hello and welcome and blessings. And it is so great to be here with you. My name is Pastor Dale Wayne Williams, and it is my first Sunday here with Kalamo. Uh, I'm just honored and excited and thrilled and all the various adjectives to be here with you this morning. This is my first recorded sermon. And you might notice a little different than what you're used to seeing with Pastor Jerry. The last few, he's been outside. It's been some lovely weather, and unfortunately, I am recovering from hamstring surgery, so standing outside isn't necessarily my strong suit right now, but I promise there will be some wonderful views of the interior of my home as I sit to record these. And you may be wondering, who is this person in front of you? Who is Dale Wayne Williams? They definitely seem a little bit different than Pastor Jerry does. Well, let me tell you about myself. Like I said, my name is Dale Wayne Williams. I was born in Texas on a military base and moved to rural northern Michigan when I was about 2 years old. My family uh, grew up on a farm. My dad was a police officer and a part-time farmer. My mom worked for the Army National Guard. I grew up near my grandparents and an aunt and uncle and cousins in the kind of the middle of nowhere. I went to uh, elementary and high school in a town of about 900 people. We uh, the graduating class I was a part of, the class of 2010, when I was 16 years old, was about 27 of us. So, not a particularly populous region of the state. Like I said, I graduated at 16 in 2010. I played 3 sports a year in high school. I was student council president. I was part of 4-H. I was class valedictorian. I did a lot, and that's something that continues to be a theme in my life. Is I do a lot. So, after graduating high school, I went to Grand Valley State University. Go Lakers! I got a degree in sociology and anthropology. Part of the reason for that being, I just love people. I love cultures. I love learning and experiencing and finding all the ways that culture and society works. And one of the particular reasons that drew me to sociology is that there's a lot that we already know in physical sciences, mathematics, that kind of stuff. Not to say there aren't new things to be discovered, but I liked the social sciences, sociology, anthropology, because it's so relatively new and there's so much to be learned and gained, and I loved that. After graduating, I moved to Lansing. Uh, I moved to Lansing in about 2015. There was a bit of time before graduating and moving to Lansing, where I worked some odd jobs here and there until starting in 2017 at a homeless shelter, just doing basic administrative assistant work, sometimes filling in the shelter, sometimes filling in the kitchen. But I fell in love with the job. I, at the same time, started attending Sycamore Creek in Lansing. And with them, I started preaching on their teaching team in 2019, just a sermon or two here or there. Uh, and in March of 2020, I was exploring my calling, and fortunately, nothing else crazy happened in March of 2020. Certainly, that wouldn't have changed the way we live our lives. But with that, I took that in stride. I started as a DSA in Wheatfield, who have since closed and later moved to Dimondale United Methodist. They have also unfortunately closed, and now I am here with you. During that time, outside of preaching, I worked for the homeless shelter until 2022, when I started a job with the state of Michigan as a foster care case manager, which working with The homeless was an absolute treasure. I took so much away and felt so much pride in the work that I did there in helping people find and maintain housing. My work with foster care, it feels very similar. I'm always proud of the work that I do. It's not easy work, but it's work that needs to be done. Outside of that, I also am heavily involved in theater, in the arts in Lansing. I have acted, directed, built sets, basically anything you could need me to do on or off a stage, I'm happy to do it. And I'm happy to chat with anyone about those things at any time. I love the things I'm passionate about, whether that be my work with the homeless or with youth in the foster care system, whether that be my preaching and pastoring, whether that be theater and arts. There's a lot of aspects to me, and I'm sure I will get the chance to speak with many of you about those various things that make me me. And I'm sure those will come out, you'll see them in my preaching, in what I do. And since I'm new here, I thought I'd start by discussing passages of the Bible and a couple sermons that really impacted my own personal moral philosophy, my understanding of myself as a Christian, what it means for me to be a believer. I just really wanted you to have that basis when you think of what does Pastor Dale Wayne Williams stand for? What do they think? Uh, what do they believe? How do they preach? I wanted you to have that basis. So these first few weeks aren't really a series so much as me just talking with you about scriptures that personally mean a lot to me. So I thought I'd start this very first week by discussing a passage of the gospel that has heavily influenced my understanding of scripture and my own personal moral philosophies, my own personal spiritual understandings. And we'll actually spend a couple weeks here. This is just the first week here, and that is the Sermon on the Mount. I find myself drawn to the Sermon on the Mount time and time and time again. More specifically, this week, we're going to look at the Beatitudes. I think that is a great place to start when we're thinking about uh, a church with a new pastor coming in. It might be easy to start to worry about all the things that could go wrong. Maybe we should remember why we're blessed. So, drawing back a little bit from the Beatitudes to the Sermon on the Mount, where was Jesus and who was the audience for this? Well, the time and the place, this was Galilee, where Jesus had been teaching and healing and all around proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. And at this time, Israel was occupied by the Romans. We cannot, when we look at who Jesus was, take Jesus out of the time when he was preaching and the disciples out of the time when they were following him. This was a time in Israel's history where they were occupied. The Romans were there, the Romans made the rules, and they had to follow the rules. And now, while they were still able to worship relatively freely, uh, even from Jesus's earliest days, you see that kind of the Romans doing things are what set the stages for a lot of stuff. But for the Sermon on the Mount, at least, Jesus had been teaching and healing and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom in Galilee. Now, who were the people Jesus would have been speaking to? Jesus, during this time, would have probably been speaking to a bunch of especially young men, men probably older teenagers to 30s, 40s, young men, maybe their wives and children with them there as well, um, who were probably in a bit of discontent with the situation, as it were. They were occupied and they were living every day under the rule of someone who they didn't agree with, who uh, they didn't see as having their best interests. They were Romans. They weren't from the Middle East. They weren't from Israel. They weren't even from other parts of the Middle East that were more associated with the Israelites. These people were revolutionaries. These were young men who were ready to fight and to go and take back Israel. And here comes this man. Here comes Jesus. And he starts talking to them about the kingdom. So Jesus is talking to people ready to go and fight for the promised kingdom. He is just right there. Now place yourself in these shoes and imagine how the man you are hearing speak about fulfilling your dream of throwing off oppression. This is the exact sermon you want to hear. This is everything you need. This teacher is telling us the things we need to lift ourselves up, lift up the oppressed. And the first thing he does is start calling out who is blessed. Let's start with the scripture. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. The poor in spirit? Those who mourn, the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness? These are who's getting blessed? What's so great about being poor or mourning? Since when have you been told, hey, good job on being quiet or bashful? Oh, you aren't filled with righteousness? Or in other languages, this word might be translated as justice. You're still hungering and thirsting after these things? Hey, you're blessed. You are so blessed. And that could be confusing. You could be like, why are these people the ones who are being blessed? Well, let me ask you, who needs a blessing? It's the same as when Christ asks who needs a physician. Is it the sick or the healthy? Well, who needs the blessings? Christ is speaking to the dejected, to the heartbroken, those on the verge of giving up, and maybe someone who has never been reassured or shown true selfless love. He's saying, you are blessed, and I am blessing you. Think back on your darkest times. Think back on your saddest hours. Think about those moments when you were mourning. I lost my grandmother back in 2022, and let me tell you, the people who comforted me during that time, they mean the world to me. I cannot put into words what they did for me. Blessed. When you're dejected, when you're heartbroken, when you're on the verge of giving up, you are blessed. And Christ is the one saying that. He is saying, you are blessed. I am blessing you. This isn't done in a thoughts and prayers kind of way or a kind of false reassurance. This is a promise of love that Christ will follow through on personally. Because that is the God we follow. That is the Christ we believe in. Someone who is personal with it. And it might not always seem like it's coming directly from him. You might feel it from others. Like I said, when I was in a time of mourning, my friends lifting me up was all that I needed. I particularly remember one friend who sat next to me. My grandmother passed away in the weekend between two shows. And so second week in the show, I wasn't telling anyone, didn't want to bring the moon down, but one of my friends realized how off I was and just sat down with me and had me tell the story of my grandmother and how much she meant to me and just comforted me. And that was a blessing that I'll never forget. So Christ is blessing those who need it the most. Then Christ shifts the narrative a bit. Not only are those struggling receiving Christ's blessings, not only are those people getting Jesus's blessings, but also, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the poor in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The merciful, the peacemakers, and those who are persecuted because of righteousness, or again, justice is another good word to use here. Jesus is telling a group of mercenaries that they must show, not mercenaries, a group of revolutionaries, that they must show mercy. A theme we'll see repeated, because the merciful are blessed. Jesus told a group of revolutionaries that they must be working for peace, because it is the peacemakers who are blessed. Jesus told a group who wanted to upend the status quo that they must have their hearts set on justice to be blessed. Jesus knew exactly who he was speaking to and what they wanted, and he put it right out there. Continuing on, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Lies, persecution, insults, because you are following Christ, you're blessed. Now, I do want to offer you a word of caution. Be careful with this one. Don't make yourself a martyr. But if you're doing what is right, if you are following what Jesus has set out for you, and if people are going to insult you and persecute you and lie about you, don't worry. You're blessed. Jesus is blessing you. So, looking at this, who is Jesus blessing? The people who needed to be lifted up, and the people Christ saw as the ones doing the lifting. It's a two-way street. Jesus knew how much the people who would need his love would need him, and he wanted to know that they would be lifted up. But Jesus also saw the work that others would be doing, and knew that their spirits would need to be consistently raised as well. As we worship together, you'll see more and more how those ideas are at the forefront of my thought, at blessing and lifting up the people who need it, those who are downtrodden, those who have lost hope, those who are at their wits' end, and also supporting those who want to do that work, who want to do the lifting. Over the next few weeks, we'll go deeper into those passages that define me and define how I see what Jesus had taught as this almost counterculture, revolutionary kingdom that he envisioned. That kingdom that wasn't like the status quo, that kingdom that blessed and kept blessing and keeps blessing. And the kicker with all that is it's not something we have to wait for. It's something we can achieve together. I look forward to worshiping with you in the coming weeks. Have a blessed day.